And now, back to the Dr. A Show with your host, Dr. Will Aguila.
Welcome back to the Dr. A Show. We're speaking to Dr. Ramani, author of Your Why You Eat, Change Your Food Attitude, Change Your Life. Her website is Dr.Ramani, RAMANI.com. Dr. Ramani, before the break, we were talking about the stakeholders and their ability to take hold in you. These are people around you that have some stake in your decisions and in your future. I also mentioned that I've noticed a lot of them that are friendly and unfriendly saboteurs.
Yeah.
Again, not all of them are saboteurs, but now I'm talking about grandma or, you know, your brother or your mom, and they think you're a little too thin, or they just want to do the right thing. They're not trying to harm you, but they say, you know, eat this little piece of pie or eat this. Or those are friendly saboteurs. Now, the unfriendly saboteurs are, unfortunately, I've seen this very often, is the spouse is trying to sabotage you all the time, that doesn't want you to lose weight for whatever selfish reasons those are, or it can even be a coworker that brings you donuts in all the time, or has you go by the table where all the candies are on purpose because they want to see you fail. How do you handle those people?
I think that, again, it's really about being focused and communicating. It's like the core of every relationship is communication. And so if you're in the workplace and someone's bringing you by the donut table, listen, you're bigger than those donuts. You can say no to those donuts. Is it going to be hard? Yes. Are they making your life harder? Yes. And honestly, then you have to ask yourself a question. Just like you're now able to walk away from unhealthy foods when you're trying to lose weight, for example, you can walk away from cakes and sweets even though it's hard. Walk away from unhealthy people. Treat them like a donut. Say, you know, okay, if to the degree I can avoid interacting with this one, or maybe later in the day when I have a harder time, just like you need to be mindful about food, be mindful about people, about stakeholders. And that can be a really good trick, saying, oh, gosh, this one is not somebody I should be eating with or I should be spending late afternoons with, because really they're a tricky one. And so to the degree you can control that consumption of these people, do so. It's a lot like consuming food. You just need to be mindful and be aware of the role they play. And also, Dr. A, keep in mind, too, that there are stakeholders you don't even think about. For example, the waiter, when you go to a restaurant, when you say you're done and you've like half your portion, they're like, oh, no, wasn't it good? Many of us keep eating the food because we want to please the waiter. We never even met the waiter.
That
and
is
yet we're doing
absolutely
something to
true.
please them. Yeah. People are powerful when they're strangers. So you can imagine Grandma and her lasagna is very powerful.
And the power of saying no is unbelievable. And the only thing is you have to work up the courage to do it for the very first time. And once you do it, you will see that it's so much easier than you think it was.
Yes.
And you really can get into the habit of doing it. In fact, it actually even feels good to be able to say it because you're empowering yourself. You're taking back that self-esteem that you so sorely need and self-confidence. I really wanted to touch on some of those ingrained habits that, oh my God, we all have them.
Yes, we do.
Such as cleaning your plate and also about eating dessert after every meal, another very common one. But how do you break a habit that's so ingrained ever since you were a little tiny kid?
The tough thing, cleaning your plate is, over 50% of American adults still clean their plate at almost every meal. This is a tough one to break. One thing is to get yourself a little bit more comfortable with the idea of quote-unquote waste. It's not nearly as wasteful as you think. Let's say you spend $6 on a sandwich, and it's just too big, and they won't sell you half a sandwich. $6, you get the whole sandwich. You eat half that sandwich, and it's more than enough. You are full, and you're satisfied. You just got your money's worth. You were planning on spending $6 on lunch. And for a lot of people who don't do well with trigger foods or keeping food in their bag or something, if they think that's risky for them, I would suggest throwing it out. I know it feels like a hard thing, but you know what? That quote-unquote $3 wasted may end up being thousands of dollars in health care bills down the road. I think it's just a mindset of saying, try and order less. See if the restaurant will sometimes make you half a sandwich. Order an appetizer. Split your entrees, that kind of thing. You can even have them split it and not bring it to you at mealtime so you don't idly eat it, but do things to manipulate that. At home, do things like use much smaller plates. Most of us eat off of dinner plates. We should be eating off of bread plates. And so switch it up. So it's changing the plate. It's changing the choices. It's really putting your head down saying, I can do this. And then after every single bite, as strange as this may sound, ask yourself the question, am I full? And slow way down. Really enjoy. Food should be a sensual experience. And like all sensual experiences, it should be slow and savored. Most of us are wolfing food down so quickly. Take it slow, and after each bite, ask yourself, am I full? And then, if you are full, push it away. and figure out a way to get it away from you so you don't keep idly nibbling on it. I think most of us probably idly nibble on 2,000 to 3,000 calories a week.
Then that's a great point, and I got to tell you, one of the things that's a real warning sign that you're going to have a problem with eating and with overeating is that you start finishing your spouse's plate or your kid's plate.
Yes.
And that is extremely common. But let me tell you what works for that. Is as soon as you're done in a restaurant and your family's there around you and you're done, get up and go to the bathroom. I don't care if you really don't have to go. It doesn't matter. Just get up and walk.
Yep. It's a
walk
great
away,
idea.
go to the bathroom, wash your hands, then come back. You instruct your family to put away the food they're not going to eat in a bag before you get back. And I got to tell you, the urge goes away. And that's the way I did it, because I used to
totally
finish
agree.
my wife's plate, my kid's plate, everybody's plate.
Completely. And, back to your point on dessert, too, keep in mind with dessert, it is a habit. But some people like sort of a nice, soft end to a meal. One thing I often recommend is tea. Tea has no calories. Maybe you could put 1 teaspoon of sugar into it to a tune of 16 calories. But it gives you a nice, warm, soothing routine at the end of the meal, because I think dessert ends up becoming a little bit about routine, because putting sugar at the end of the meal makes absolutely no sense. So I just think that it's a nice way to, and I always say to people, like, if you're a night eater and you can't stop, a tea is a great thing to do at night. It feels soothing, it's warm, there's a lot of ritual around it, there's lots of different flavors, you don't have to have a caffeine tea, obviously, and so I think that some way to substitute that sort of, because it really is a routine that's comforting. Do something else that's comforting, but that isn't so damaging.
And it's so true, because this is a great question I was going to ask you later, but there's ample evidence out there that certain foods release dopamine and serotonin in our brains, much like recreational drugs and alcohol.
Yep.
How does someone who's addicted to food for comfort, much like you and I were, learn to substitute other activities that will give them the same feeling without substituting one vice for another?
Yep.
One vice for another, I mean cigarettes or alcohol for eating, and that happens all the time, of course.
One thing I suggest to people is when they're not in that position of eating, for emotional reasons, or when they're not emotionally agitated, at a nice, calm time, is make a list of everything that gives them pleasure, that's legal, that doesn't damage them, and that could be anything. It could be go on Facebook, do a puzzle, read a book, play with your dog. It could be anything. And then make that list and hang it in the kitchen, hang it on the bathroom mirror, do whatever you need to do so it's there, and say, I'm feeling like I want to go in for the sweets. Instead, I'm going to do da-da. Because sometimes all we're looking for that moment is some comfort. And having that list everywhere. I even had a patient where we had some fun with it. She made a list of like 20 to 25 things, ranging from like getting a pedicure to soaking in the tub. And she wrote them on little, pieces of paper, and she dropped them in a jar. So when she felt like going for the cookie jar, she went for the pleasure jar instead. And she stuck her hand in and went out. Yeah, and that worked like a charm. Yeah, she got super excited then, too. She'd say, I'm feeling hungry. It's time to go for the pleasure jar. And she said, then, by the time I got in and out of the tub, I wasn't hungry anymore. And I had taken care of myself, and I felt like a different person. Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I'll add a little bit more to that, too. I found that what works even better than that is that the activity you choose requires your creativity and your intellect. Yes. So the less mindless the activity is, the more it requires your creativity and intellect, the more release of those hormones in the brain, the better you feel, and the more likely you're going to do it and get the same result.
Yes, absolutely. And in a pleasurable way. Whether it's reading having a stack of books or whatever the case may be.
And absolutely, and do it. And one of the things I tell a lot of people to do is pick half an hour in your day, and I know it's really tough. A lot of people, oh my gosh, I won't be able to pick any time of the day. It's impossible. But pick a half hour, 30 minutes every single day. But here's the key. It has to be at the same time every day. It cannot vary, because otherwise you won't do it. And in those 30 minutes, do one of these activities for yourself. And what this does is it requires other people to help you do it. You're going to have to recruit them to allow you to do it. And initially you're going to feel guilty about it, but eventually what happens is when you own it, and you expect it to come, and you defend it if somebody tries to take it away, it becomes yours, and it really releases that energy. It helps you. It resets you.
And more than anything, it nourishes you, which is what we're sometimes using food to nourish ourselves in the wrong way. Sometimes when we need our souls nourished, we should be doing these activities, not eating a piece of cake.
Now, we have about a minute left. Do you have any stories of a particular patient that you helped lose weight and you could share with us, something inspirational?
A story I'd love to tell you about is a woman who was watching me write the book, and she would find drafts of it in my printer and every so often glance over it, listen to my conference calls. Little did I know she was writing it all down. She happened to work in my same lab, and what she did was she listened to it all. She ended up not only losing 55 pounds, but she changed so many other areas of her life. She listened to her spider senses that she went back and found the man who was her great love in her early 20s, and for the first time in her life at the age of in her mid-50s, she got married, and she got off her diabetes meds for the first time in 10 years. It's a really extraordinary story because what she did was she listened to her body. Not only did that translate into weight loss, it translated into life change, and now she's a diabetes educator in an ethnic minority community in Los Angeles and doing really good work. She changed her entire life.
The book is You Are What You Eat, Change Your Food Attitude, Change Your Life, Dr. Ramani, and her website is Dr.Ramani, RAMANI.com. Dr. Ramani, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. It was a real pleasure.
When we come back from our break, you're going to hear the tragic story of Jackie Carpenter and her son when in the early hours of a June morning in Georgia, their lives were turned upside down.